All right, guys. So welcome to the live workshop. We're gonna go in depth into something very specific, which is how to quit porn, masturbation, and lust forever. Okay, we're gonna go over the basics, over what we actually need to tackle so that we can actually get rid of this. And by the end of this, we're gonna have a Q&A session where we will be able to ask any questions basically about this. So let's just start. So look, we have first the root cause of PMO. PMO means porn, masturbation, orgasm. For the ones that don't know, we have how to remove lust and fantasies, which are kind of separate from porn and masturbation, but it is something that if you get rid of this, it will help you create other changes in your life. And you'll be able to get closer to God. You'll be able to look at the world differently. You'll be able to look at women differently. How to have full control over your urges forever. Okay, this is something very important to tackle because most people don't know how urges even work in the first place. And then by the end of this, we're gonna have a Q&A, probably a short one where I answer any questions. And also, if you're watching the recording of this, you can leave your comments. If any questions, I highly suggest you join the free school community that I have, where you can ask questions also, and the recording will be there. So let's just start it off, okay? So I just want to start with basically my journey, trying to quit porn, because on the path of trying to quit porn, as we know, it's not the easiest thing, right? So, for example, in my teenage years, right, I used to watch a lot of porn, and I watch it multiple times a day. It will leave me like feeling weak, worthless, powerless. I was bullied, I was insulted and everything, which crushed me. I'm seeing like some people are joining. You can ask me questions also in the comment box. So what happened basically is, I developed like an egotistical goal to just prove to everyone that I wanted to become successful. And what I realized is, I came across NoFap, as many of you. I came across NoFap and I realized, look, if I do NoFap, if I quit porn, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna be like unique. And so that means that I'm gonna be able to prove my bullies wrong. I'm gonna be able to finally make a change in my life and finally be confident, finally be able to attract women, right? But here's the problem, okay? I would go a few days without porn, sometimes a few weeks, and even a few months to eventually come back to porn. And I was just trying to be disciplined. Like, a lot of us, we just try to be disciplined. We just try to keep ourselves busy. We just try to have goals, purposes in our lives. I was also begging and praying that, this is the last time I'm going to watch porn. I don't want to watch it ever again. But nothing was working, okay? Nothing was working. I would even sometimes go 2 months, 3 months, 4 months without porn and then come back to it. And I would just be left with shame, guilt, misery, regret. But then I realized something, okay? I asked myself, like, why is that? I've been able to leave video games behind. I've been able to completely leave junk food behind. I have no desires to do those things at all, right? It's been multiple years. I used to play for video games before I even started watching porn. And I would play up to 16 hours per day. I would eat junk food every single day for years. But yet I was able to quit like this effortlessly. But for porn, it didn't work. And ironically, realized that, like, look, I didn't do any of that nofap stuff when it comes to quitting porn. I didn't go and count the days. I didn't go and try to implement different techniques like keeping myself busy, like having goals and purposes. I didn't implement anything when it comes to leaving video games or junk food, even though there are behaviors that will be considered as having a lot of dopamine, like a lot. And I didn't even need self-control. I didn't even need discipline, willpower. I didn't even need blockers to stop playing video games or to stop eating junk food. I just effortlessly moved on. That's when I realized that NoFap was a big psyop, and we're going to see here in this masterclass why and how we're going to be able to effortlessly leave PMO behind, right? PMO being porn masturbation. So here's what happened, okay? Here's how I found out about the effortless method. First, I had a plan, okay? My plan was just to study in depth, like the people that actually left porn and masturbation forever. Obviously, experts and things of that nature. And I read like literally every single book, I read every single article, I watched every single video, I talked with many people, I talked with coaches. And I realized there was people that managed to just quit porn once they understood like some of the things which we're going to talk about, and never even felt the desire to come back to it. The problem though is, I still kind of struggled quitting. I was learning different things, but it wasn't really working, right? The urges didn't go away, and I found myself constantly fighting them, right? Deep down, I was just afraid that I'm just going to relapse in the future, that I'm eventually going to struggle with this again. And so basically, that's what happened. And I was just afraid. Okay, I was afraid I'm going to come back to porn eventually, that I'm going to struggle with this again, as many of you can probably relate. And so I eventually discovered the solution, okay? And the solution was getting to the root cause, the real root cause, not just not childhood trauma like everyone says, but the root cause of, by using the effortless method, which is what we're gonna do, okay? And this allowed me to not only quit porn, masturbation, lust for good, but also help other people, which is something you're gonna be able to do as well. Help other people quit porn, masturbation, and lust, and in a quick time frame. And look, what happened is, some of them grew closer to God. Some of them became leaders, like actual, like people that are that other people look up to, that are able to be masculine and just go and achieve different things in life, right? And many built successful businesses. So here's the thing, okay? Just want to show you here that's possible, right? I have my student, for example, Josh. I have my other student, Haul. And these are just a few screenshots here. I have like almost hundreds of them. I can only put like about 8 of them. So here's basically proof that it works, okay? And you can look on my website, you can look on my Instagram, you can look on my YouTube to see more proof. So here's what's gonna happen, okay? We gotta first get to the root cause, okay? Let me explain something very, very important. We all think that urges are biological, meaning that like, oh, you're a man, you have testosterone, you have your hormones, you have, your biology is like to reproduce with other women, right? And so we think that that's the reason why we watch porn, okay? But the thing is, we couldn't really stop watching porn if that was the case. But the truth is, that's not the case. We are motivated and driven to watch porn and masturbate and even lust based on specific reasons, which we're going to talk about. It's not because you don't have a purpose. It's not because you don't have a good lifestyle. It's not because you're not successful. It's not because you're not in a relationship that you can't quit. Many people quit without having a strong purpose, whilst having, a somewhat bad life where, there's a ton of problems in their lives. They get nothing done, yet they don't watch porn, right? And it's not a lack of discipline, obviously. You don't need self-control or willpower, because porn is just a video. It's a video on your screen. Masturbation is something that you got to do, right? It's something that you gotta decide to do. So it's not a lack of discipline. Rather, it's just that you have a lot of reasons to be motivated to watch porn and masturbate. Let me explain to you guys something like very, very important, okay? So as we can see here, okay, we have PMO. And so this is how the value, aka the root cause, the desire to PMO is created. We have multiple things. I call these reasons, okay? First, the major reason why people want to watch porn and masturbate is for emotional relief. We all know this. You don't watch porn when you feel good, you only watch porn when you feel down, right? When you feel stressed out, that's when you most of the time watch porn, for example. And so we believe, whether we can admit it or deny it, it doesn't matter. We unconsciously or subconsciously believe that porn is going to give us a relief from loneliness. It's going to give us a relief from boredom. That is going to give us a relief from stress, anxiety. That's going to give us a relief from sex, right? From the fact that we're not in a relationship, that we don't have intercourse. It's going to give us a relief from frustration. It's going to give us a relief from emotional pain, depression. We believe those things. So whenever we want to watch, whenever we're, for example, let's say we're very stressed out. If we believe that porn is the best option to relieve that stress, and that it's going to literally, make us feel better, even if it's for a few seconds, a few minutes, a few hours, If we think it's the best option, then obviously as human beings, we're going to be motivated towards that. Okay. Other reason is the aspect of being healthy. We've been told all of our life that, if you masturbate, well, you're going to be able to keep your sexual health in check. You're going to be able to really just prevent prostate cancer. Even you might think that, this is, false. You're not going to get prostate cancer, whatever. But we still have those fears in the back of our minds that we never tackled. We believe that if we don't have a release, something bad will happen with our health. We're almost going to explode. It's like, it's not normal. You should clean the pipes. Humans always used to have intercourse. We have all of these, okay, reasons. And then we have pleasure. And sorry, here, administration is a random word. I don't know why I didn't put the word here, but look, pleasure. We believe that orgasm is the best feeling in the entire world, right? I'm not going to deny that it is pleasurable or not pleasurable, but people believe that it's literally the best thing in the entire world. We believe that sex is the most important thing on earth. We've been told through movies, through media, through music, through many different outlets that sex is literally the number one thing that, if you don't have, well, that means that you're not successful in life. But if you do have, then that means you're successful. We see it nowadays in more so civilized society where, being able to sleep around is very valuable compared to someone who, let's say, for example, even practices sexual abstinence for religious purposes. It's mainstream nowadays, right? So a lot of us put sex on a pedestal, and then because we don't have sex, because we're not in relationships, because we're not married, we go to porn. That comes to the other reason, which is we think that porn is a substitute for sex, it's a substitute for intimacy, it's a substitute for reproduction, literally, right? We know that it's not the same, but we believe that it gives like a glimpse of it, right? That it can be served as a substitute for a short period of time, right? We believe that masturbation feels euphoric, that it's like the best feeling in the world. You've watched it in movies, for example, in The Wolf of Wall Street, where the main actor says, "Oh yeah, I masturbate 7 times a day. It's the best thing on earth." Whatever, right? We believe that, and we believe that we're chemically filled with endorphins whenever we masturbate, watch porn, whatever, and that there's a huge amount of chemicals, a huge amount of dopamine, serotonin, all of those things. Now, I want you to just ask yourself one question: if you believe that porn and masturbation unconsciously or even consciously can give you all of those things here, all of those reasons, don't you think that it is normal that we are motivated to go towards those things? And then I'm gonna ask you a question: if porn and masturbation didn't give you any of those things, let's say that it didn't do anything, right? It didn't feel good, that it wasn't healthy, it was actually like the opposite. That it couldn't give you any form of relief, that you'll still be stressed out whilst you're watching it, for example. Would you be motivated to watch it? I'm going to tell you the answer is going to be no, because this is what we're going to tackle. Okay, we're going to tackle exactly why we feel motivated and debunk those reasons as we see here, so that it's just easy for you to not even desire to watch porn or masturbate, and even less down the line. Okay, so look, this is the reasons why people watch porn. Pleasure is a big one, emotional relief and sexual relief, right? Now, let me just do this. So look, debunking the porn myths, okay? A lot of people believe in those myths, so it's very important that we tackle them. Sex is not a survival need, okay? Sex and reproduction is a desire, a very valuable desire, obviously, because you're able to literally, make your bloodline continue. You're able to make another, generation of you like survive. Basically, I mean, you're able to do many things with that, right? But the thing is, it's not a biological necessity. For example, if I need to pee, well, my body is going to force me to pee at one point. I'm going to have to pee, right? I'm going to have side effects if I don't pee, right? So my body is going to find a way, right? It's going to, almost like, I never got to that point where it's like you're basically going to, quote unquote, I have to release. But for porn, masturbation, sex, and any sexual behaviors, you don't have to. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't engage in sexual behaviors. I'm not saying you shouldn't be having sex, especially within marriage. I'm not saying those things. I'm saying that it is something fully in your control. meaning that you can choose to do whatever you want with it. Look, there's people that choose to not have kids. There's people like priests who choose to not even indulge in sex. There's other people who have different preferences and choose to not even indulge in any of those things, because you have full control over it. It is a desire, it is an innate desire, meaning that you're born with it, but you have control over it, right? Compared to, like, for example, oh, you need to eat food because if you don't eat food, well, you'll die basically, right? Another thing we got to understand is the body's self-cleansing mechanism. The body actually, okay, if you don't have a release, if you don't masturbate, if you don't have sex, for example, right? Because a lot of people are scared that, like, they think, well, our ancestors used to have a lot of sex, they used to reproduce a lot, which obviously is normal, right? But we are in fear that, if we don't masturbate, if we don't have sex, well, that means that, our something bad will happen to us. But let me explain to you something. The body has a self-cleansing mechanism, meaning that whenever you don't masturbate, or let's say you don't have a release overall, like you don't ejaculate basically, the body will handle the excess semen in your body and will release it. So basically you'll ejaculate, but through other forms. So basically through wet dreams, which we call natural emissions, it's going to have a release there. And also sperm is actually reabsorbed, meaning that the sperm that you don't release is also reabsorbed. And this process of self-cleansing is totally healthy in the sense that there's no side effects and it is natural, right? This is just what your body does on autopilot, basically. Just to prove to you that you don't need to be scared of it, any of those things. Also, lust is learned, okay? Lust is not necessarily something like, for example, thinking about a woman and thinking about having sex with her whilst you see her on the street is not something that the human body does without any which you have no control over. It is something that you learn to do over time as you get fed different ideas about sexuality, that you get fed different ideas about lust. We've been told over and over again from the media, from music, from movies, from different media outlets, that like lust is associated with power. I mean, you watch movies where James Bond sleeps around and you're like, well, I want to be like James Bond. He's masculine, he's powerful, he's good looking, he has the respect from other people. And then they show scenes where it's like he's having a lot of sex, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with sex objectively, but I'm just saying that they portray lust as this masculine, this thing that if you have power, you're gonna be able to get, this thing that if you're attractive, you're gonna indulge in, whatever, right? They portray lust. And so lust starts having a huge importance in our lives, especially nowadays that we're not really in relationships anymore, because we're obviously kind of not progressing in life as much, and we don't really put much importance on that, whatever. There's multiple reasons, right? So let's just uncover basically why we lust. Okay, this is very important. So here's what I want you guys to do. Understand why you lust and even relapse. Okay, relapse. Relapse is not the right word to use, because relapse is actually something that is used for medical conditions. Meaning, like, for example, if your health, if you get like sickness for example, and your health gets good and then it goes back down to how it was bad, well, that's called the relapse. It's not used for alcohol. It's not used for porn. It's not used for drugs. It's not used for nicotine. It is used for medical conditions. It's just people falsely use the word relapse. The nofap communities are just basically, they just don't have the knowledge about, like, basic human psychology. Okay, so ask yourself this one golden question, and this is very important, because you're, if you want, you can actually leave this in the comment section, so I can also help you to tackle this. Okay, what do you fear would happen if you leave lust and masturbation, and just, you can say porn also, forever? And be as honest as possible. You might have some fears in the back of your mind, like, yeah, it's gonna be great, but I'm gonna, you know, I'm scared that I'm gonna get this, that this might happen, that I might fall into this, whatever, right? We have some fears which we can easily tackle, so that our subconscious is aligned with the goal of not masturbating and not watching porn forever. Okay, and also having control over your lust. So please answer that right now. It is literally going to change everything for you. Then the why process. Okay, the why process, you probably heard of this before. It is very simple, right? It's just understanding the subconscious value you give to porn. This is important that you do, though. and do this with someone else if you want to make it easier. Basically, what this process is like where one guy, and it's better to do it with someone else, but you can do it by yourself if you want. You want to be like, okay, you know what? I like watching porn, but why? Okay. And then you're going to have reasons. Okay. So, for example, you can be like, okay, so let's say I'm the guy who gets questioned. Okay. Or let's say you're the guy. I'm going to ask you, like, okay, man, like, why do you like watching porn? And then you're going to say, oh, because, for example, I want sex. And then I'm going to ask you, why do you want sex? And you're going to say, maybe, oh, because it feels pleasurable. I'm going to say, but why do you want to feel pleasure through sex? Oh, because um, I want connection. And I'm gonna ask you, why do you want connection? And then you do this over and over again until you get to a strong emotional reason or a strong like past memory that kind of like creates the value of watching porn unconsciously. Because once we bring the unconscious, the subconscious into the conscious, it becomes so easy to just tackle this. It becomes effortless. Okay. So do this process. This is golden because this is something I do with my student, which I don't tell anyone about. Maybe you've seen this before, like I said, but you gotta go in depth into porn, lust, and masturbation with that question. Okay. So understanding urges. Okay. There's a big misconception around urges. We think that we have urges and that we're always gonna fire off urges. But let me tell you, that's not true. I don't have urges to watch porn. People I've coached, they get to a point after a few weeks of me coaching them that they realize they don't have urges, they have something else, okay, which is easy to tackle. We don't have innate urges for porn, okay? Just think about it. You're not born innately going towards porn at puberty. You only go towards there if you know about porn, that it exists within your mind, like you know that okay, yeah, it is something, and that you at least try it, right, multiple times because you need to learn to like it, and also that you kind of become um you know you kind of like start having this different perspective around porn, meaning that you start actually liking it. Because most of the time what happens is people don't innately like watching porn. They feel stressed out, they're just curious, but then they learn to like it. It's a learned want, it's a learned desire, meaning that they learn to like it by their friends telling them like it's so pleasurable, that it's like the best thing on earth. And then they start having this perception, they put that perception onto porn. Okay, what happens is we have a want. Okay, a want is very simple to understand. Wants are the emotions associated with perceived benefits, meaning that you want something for the benefits which you think it's going to give you. Just like as we can see here, we desire, right? Desire is just want, basically. We desire porn because we have pleasure, which there are reasons for. We have sexual relief, and then we have emotional relief. And so when you have all of these three big things, these three big valuable things, when you feel down, for example, when you feel bored, when you feel lonely, well, it's going to create, I mean, obviously you're going to have the want to, for example, relieve that loneliness, to, for example, relieve that those sexual desires of yours, to feel less lonely, to feel pleasure because everything is boring for you and because you're lonely, for example, to feel less emotional pain and actually feel better in the moment being. So that's what creates the desire for porn. And it's not dopamine. Dopamine is released in the anticipation of a reward. Okay, we gotta understand that dopamine doesn't come from the video, because if it came from the video, then any video you'd watch will give you dopamine. I mean, almost sexual porn would give you dopamine. I mean, uh, there's a bunch of dirty jars that you don't even watch that you wouldn't even release dopamine for. It's not the video, okay? And there's something that a lot of people do. It's like, you can, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you were to look at porn mindfully, meaning like without thinking anything, you'd see that there's literally nothing that's happening. You'll see there's literally no effects at all. Okay, all that's going to happen is you're going to see that it's just a video. But instead, okay, what we gotta realize is that dopamine is released before. It's the anticipation, meaning like you start feeling, that kind of motivation to go towards porn and masturbation, because you believe like, look, I'm gonna get the reward, I'm gonna get pleasure. And there's no pleasure currently, right? You feel maybe bored, you feel lonely. Oh, I'm gonna get the reward of sexual relief, I'm gonna get the reward of emotional relief. You see, you get a reward in your mind, so you start releasing dopamine because you're motivated towards that. Okay, so Q&A. If you guys have any questions, I know, for example, Sank, if you have any question, I'm ready to answer them. I'm also gonna answer other questions too. So okay, so there's a question about addiction. So addiction is something which you got to realize that if you put the blame, okay, I don't even need to debunk addiction. If you put the blame on addiction rather than your own self, okay, meaning that I'm not saying like put the blame on your own self, and as in like, you know, oh, you're a bad person, stop watching porn. But if you put the blame on a concept that has not been even proven to be real when it comes to porn, right? Well, I'm not going to talk about drugs or alcohol, whatever, just porn in general, then obviously you're always bound to fail like based on nofap standards, because decide to watch porn. It's fully within your control. I always ask this question in the first videos in my mentorship with my students, which is, if you if I were to give you $1 million, and that $1 million, there's one catch: you can't watch porn or masturbate for the rest of your life, not even once. Would you say, oh, yeah, I'm I want it, but I'm gonna just relapse because I'm addicted? The answer is probably no, because the reasons for money is way higher than the reasons for watching porn, and that's, for most people, right? Or if it's $100 million, it's even higher, for example. So what you got to realize is that addiction is it's not that you're addicted, it's just that you like something a lot, right? For all of these reasons which I just showed. And then nofap, sadly, the porn recovery movement tells you, well, no, it's because you're addicted. And so what happens is, well, what does an addict guy does? Well, most of the time he's going to lose control. He's going to have strong temptation and urges. He's going to be finding this for multiple years. So you start associating yourself with that self-image of an addict. And if you have that self-image that you're an addict, then obviously you're going to be aligning your actions with this, which means that you're going to basically be, it's going to be messed up in the sense that, like, you're not going to be able to really do anything about it, to be honest. Because if you believe that you have no control over this, then how can you have control over this? Because you're not even going to try. That's the thing. You're not even going to try to do something different with your life. You're not even going to try to now watch porn because you believe, I'm going to get urges, I'm going to fall into this again, I don't have control over myself, I'm going to be looking for dopamine. It's like you're putting a cage on yourself, and you're just basically, you're like, oh, but I can't do anything about it. So you got to realize this is just a mental prison that you put on your own self, that you can just say, you know what, let me just remove that mental prison for myself, and let me just live my life without this concept of I'm an addict. No, it's just you like watching porn. Let me give you guys something I said in actually a Discord server not too long ago, which, a lot of people were like, wow, this is amazing. I used to play video games, as a lot of people, right? Um, Let me just see first this question. I think it's all about the mind, and we do something because we want to. That's all. Yeah, there's no natural needs, just habits. I watched a porn I watch porn without thinking anything, and nothing happened. And we have a hardware, and only it can get activated if you want to activate it. We have control all over those things. That's beautiful. So I could tell that you've watched my videos in the private community, and or my YouTube videos also, maybe, because that's true. So one guy said, like, we basically are, we basically have what we call sexual arousal. Okay, so this is the last thing he said. He said, look, we have an hardware, meaning that we have a sex drive, which can be like a sexual hardware, in a sense. Okay, like, for example, computers have the hardware, and you turn it on or you turn it off, right? Like, you can turn it on and then your computer starts, or you turn it off and then your computer just shuts down, right? Well, it's the same with your set drive. Your set drive is turned on by you, meaning, like, you start fantasizing, for example, or, for example, if you're having real intercourse, then it's also another reason. But it gets turned on by you deciding to be basically turned on, and you activate, just like the computer, you activate that hardware. So what does that mean? That means that you have full control over lust also. Lust is something that we actively choose to do. It is not something that is imposed on us. Obviously, we have reasons for lusting which can be valuable, right? For example, for some people, it's about being motivated to go towards women, right? But there's other ways that we can also go about it, right? But what we got to realize is that your sex drive is fully within your control. It's something you choose to turn on or off. The same way, for example, you have other emotions, right? Let's say, for example, you have the emotion of fear. The emotion of fear, you don't just feel it randomly. You don't just, like, feel fear out of nowhere whilst you're just chilling on your couch. You feel fear when you see or think about something that is scary. The same thing here. When you see or think about something which you think is attractive, sexually attractive, that's when you choose to turn on that sexual hardware, and you start having that sexual arousal. So that's why sexual arousal is fully within your control. So let me just go back to an example I wanted to say. So, this is something I said in the Discord server not too long ago. So if you, okay, if you look at other behaviors that you've done in the past, which you completely left behind. For example, for me, that was video games and junk food. And that's the case for a lot of people too, I'm assuming. And so with video games and junk food, trust me, I've been doing, video games. I mean, I've been playing video games and I've been eating junk food before I even started watching porn. I used to play video games. I think at the age of 7, I was playing on my phone, and then I got a Nintendo, and then I got a PS3, and then I got a Xbox. Like, I was playing a lot. I got a Wii. The Wii was so fun, but that's besides the point. I digress. I used to play so much, right? Basically, sometimes at the peak of it, I would play 16 hours a day during the pandemic, and I would, or during, like, winter breaks, or during summer break, for example, after school. So I would play up to 16 hours per day. Sometimes I would sleep at like 5 a.m. and I would hear the birds chirping outside, like literally the birds singing. But the thing is, I've left video games and junk food. Junk food, for example, I used to eat it almost every single day if I could, obviously. I wouldn't eat any healthy foods at all. At all. I didn't want to, except if I was forced, I had to, basically. And so you could say I was addicted. Man, like, video games, like, my parents would get on me, like, you're playing so much video games, you have a bad temper, you're always angry at us because you're playing video games, you're playing so much, your grades are going down. I had all of these negative side effects and consequences from playing video games. But let me tell you, the moment I had the intention of leaving video games, I basically left it. But let me explain what the process was so that you can apply the same thing to porn, masturbation, lust. With video games, I wasn't like, I need recovery from video games. That I'm addicted to video games, so it's gonna be hard. That I have I'm a dopamine junkie, so it's gonna be very hard. I didn't think any of those things. Instead, all I thought was, well, I'm, I just want to play video games, but I started reflecting on, is it better if I stop playing video games? So I went out there and I stopped playing video games, and look, the process for me to quit video games forever was very simple. I didn't think of, oh, I need another method. I didn't think, oh, I need to go and just, do different things in my life so that I can quit video games. I didn't try to tackle video games. All I did is I moved on from video games. I devalue video games through videos, right? Just like we were talking about here. Like I devalue video games through videos, and basically, I just didn't need any method. I just moved on. And so the point with this is, with quitting porn, masturbation, and everything, you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to go and do no fap. You don't have to go and think. Even for my process, I'll tell you right now. You it is very valuable, because this is what we do with other behaviors. We devalue the behavior. We remove the reasons why we do the behavior, and then we look at the reasons why we could stop doing that behavior, and we move on with our lives. It is effortless. But let me tell you, you don't need to do this for the rest of your life. When I coach people, I coach them for a few weeks, and then they move on with their lives, right? If they don't need any more help. So essentially, the point is, you don't need to overthink everything. You don't need to go and make your life about quitting porn. I didn't make my life about quitting video games. I made my life about what I wanted to pursue in my life. Okay? So don't overthink this. Don't think, oh, I just need something new. I just need a new technique. Because I talk with many people. They're like, oh, so now I'm gonna put a wristband on me, and whenever I have an urge, I'm gonna hurt myself, for example. I'm like, why are you doing this? Is this even working? And then a few weeks later, they say, no, it's not working. Or they say, oh, I'm just gonna get so busy. I'm gonna, do a new goals just so I can quit porn. Don't do it that you can quit porn. Do it for you. Quitting porn is objectively simple. You got to realize that, okay? So, guys, it's been 40 minutes now. I think something like that, 30, 40 minutes. If you guys don't have any more questions, I do have a one-on-one mentorship. If you want to get coached one-on-one to quit within 14 to 28 days, porn, masturbation, and have full control over your lust, then you can book a call down below. I'm going to leave the link here and also on your email. But the thing is, for the one-on-one mentorship, obviously, it requires a financial investment, and you must be committed, right? It is not something that, you just watch one video, or that I just hop on one coaching call with you. This is something which requires 1 to 2 hours of time, of your personal investment in terms of time per week. Okay, 1 or 2 hours. So if you guys don't have any more questions, we're just gonna go and wrap this up, and we're gonna basically be answering. I'm gonna be answering the questions through the school community, through the comment section, and let's just get this rolling, guys. So also make sure to answer the questions which we tackled over during this webinar, right? During this workshop. Okay. So let's crush it, guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.